Right. So last week we did this segment, the scandal that will shake the BBC, and the title was true. This scandal has shaken the BBC, and we already have the first resignations. The Director General and also the Chief Executive of the news, Deborah Turness. We are at the stage where the BBC is finding out.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And not only this, we are at the center of a narrative war where people are trying to spin the news in order to, make this thing as a sort of event that suits their narrative and their purposes. But also I want to say that I think that a large number of people are reacting in the same way that the Democrats reacted over the non-cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. So they constantly, out of nowhere, you had the Democrats who were attacking free speech and the First Amendment for years, perhaps a decade, and then suddenly they became the defenders of the First Amendment. And they suddenly said that Trump is trying to deprive us of free speech. And Jimmy Kimmel wasn't cancelled.
The absolutely necessary and critical voice of Jimmy Kimmel, who adds nothing to the conversation.
And the issue is that when you're creating problems out of nowhere and you're convincing people out of nowhere that there are such problems, you can have easy wins. Right, so let's see what happened in a nutshell. We have a internal report by Michael Prescott, who was sort of a member of the Standards Committee of the BBC for many years. He resigned, I think, earlier this year. In June 2025, who was a bit unhappy with how things were going. And he asked people within the BBC to do an internal investigation. And so they did. And they found out that there were several problems with the way things were running. Now, this is not a surprise for you if you're watching us for more than 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say. Right. The most important thing here is the fabrication of the speech Trump gave on January 6th, 2021, which the BBC Panorama program made and also aired a week before the 2024 US elections. And it's basically altered, so it gives the impression that Trump incited people to the riot. Let's listen to what it says.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Right, so what happened was basically that in the first clip, the Panorama program took something that Trump said 54 minutes after the first sentence, and they put it together, and they created this impression that Trump basically said, we're going to go there and we're going to fight. Right, so I'd say that this is a this is a shameless fabrication. I mean, there's no other way of putting it.
It couldn't be more cut and dried.
Right. And there are also other considerations that people have had.
You say that it couldn't be more cut and dry. I'm seeing an insane number of people on X saying that actually this is an accurate reflection of the spirit of Trump's speech. And that there is nothing wrong with making changes along these lines. And that it didn't mislead anybody because it correctly captured the spirit of what Trump was saying. Now, he actually says we're going to the Capitol peacefully.
Yes, to peacefully.
And it's going to be a peaceful protest.
Yes.
And he repeats that. Yes. But they insist that they did nothing wrong.
Yeah, but these people, what we call journalists, they're known for professionally lying. So I don't take them terribly seriously. But it is worrying that they have a constituency that will defend flagrant lies.
Yep.
Right. We also have reports about the BBC Arabic program having a bias towards Hamas.
Can you really?
Yeah, and one thing that I should have said...
It's the first time hearing of it.
I should have said in the previous segment, but I forgot to mention, is that BBC Arabic is partly funded by the Foreign Office. Right, so basically they say that the broadcaster's Arabic service has had to make 215 corrections over the past 2 years. And let me just give you an example. They're saying that one of its complaints involved a BBC Arabic report in January this year about the treatment of hostages by the Al-Qassam Brigade, in which the Hamas unit was described as guarding the hostages and being responsible for securing the hostages rather than holding them captive. I remember also we need to fact check Keir Starmer, who was speaking about sausages. And they're really...
The one that always sticks with me is when the BBC translated a Gaza Palestinian children's cartoon. Yep. And in the children's cartoon, the translation said, we need to make sure the Israelis do this, or we need to get the Israelis or whatever. And actually, it was just the Arabic word for Jews. Yeah.
And this report had several extra mentions of problems, such as the BBC's biased coverage of all sorts of topics, such as the trans issue, reporting on racial issues, and also on migration.
Or a dart at a dartboard.
Yes, but as Firas has completely correctly, I think, reported, most people tend to silence the migration issue when they're reporting on the report.
Yeah. So when you look at the media reporting, it seems like it's about Trump, Israel, and the LGBT stuff. And it's happening in a coordinated way where the two other very big issues of criticism, immigration and race, are completely missed from the conversation. And so it becomes a bit of a bait. Get the Americans involved with the Trump stuff. Get the right wing involved with the LGBT stuff, and also focus on the Israel side. Now, BBC Arabic is a cesspit. And Arabic media in general is pretty bad. The UAE media is less bad than the others, but even they are, at least they're very careful not to get people who are supportive of Hamas and present them as journalists. If they interview somebody who wants to present Hamas's perspective, they get somebody from Hamas. What the other Arabic media do is present people who are very pro-Hamas and pretend that they're neutral. And this is a huge problem, and it's a problem with the BBC as well. And it's deeply ingrained in the culture, deeply ingrained.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that are being asked now, because there is a debate as to whether this is an isolated incident or a culture. Now, we do know that the left does have a sort of disposition to try to minimize blame for themselves and maximize blame for the other side, which is interesting because they do the same thing here for the BBC while simultaneously claiming that the BBC isn't biased towards them.
I'm not even upset about that. Obviously, both sides do exactly that, obviously. It's just so obvious. It's so self-evident that the BBC is just a bastion of globalist liberalism.
Yes.
And the most extreme version of it. And it is constantly making these mistakes, as you said before the podcast. These mistakes, only ever goes in one direction. It's so self-evident. So, I'm tired that we're not having an honest conversation about what's happening.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about bias. Let's talk about... No, what are you talking about? What this is the BBC is a castle in a culture war. And it is sending out troops whenever it makes these kinds of lies, whenever it publishes these kind of lies. And they've fallen into a round trap and been completely crushed. They've been completely destroyed. And so the Director General is like, well, I've got to resign then because I'm the one who's responsible for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have here... this is a BBC article. BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO of News Deborah Turnus have resigned after a newspaper report suggested the BBC Panorama documentary, blah, 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 misled viewers by editing a speech about...
Yeah, even here is the same exact problem.
President Trump.
Even here is the same exact problem. The content of the report wasn't just that they misled viewers with that speech. Is that they were consistently biased on all of the left-wing culture issues.
Yes.
To the extent that they made, I think, 12 notifications on their sort of notification service about Russell Brand, but almost none about illegal immigration. In 1 month, Russell Brand gets 12 notifications and illegal immigration gets next to nothing.
And the thing is, as well, sorry, can we go back to that?
Yes, of course.
Saying, it misled viewers. That's such a soft way of approaching things, because you could say, well, you were factually incorrect about a claim and that misled viewers. It turns out that immigration was not 750,000 net, it was 900,000 because it got revised up last July or whatever, right? And you just left that out. And so actually you'd misled them by just not being factually correct. Fair enough, bit of a mistake, sorry. No, the BBC Director General and the CEO of News don't resign over accidentally misleading people.
Suggested that they misled.
Exactly. After a suggestion that someone has been misled, that you don't resign at those levels over those things. No, this is because you deliberately fabricated lies. You fabricated lies for partisan reasons about the leader, the president of our closest and most important ally, as if you were trying to damage the relationship between Britain and America itself over a partisan objection to who the president is. Like, this is really serious.
And the report goes into more detail than that. It wasn't just that they doctored this video to make it appear this way. It's that they insist on calling abortion reproductive health care.
Yes.
Or reproductive rights.
Everything.
It's that they fully sided with pretty much every Democrat talking point. Yeah. It's that they gave no critical coverage of Kamala Harris. It's very extensive bias that's being documented. And it's not in a newspaper report. It's in an internal memo from somebody whose job is to do this. And that memo details a litany of failings, including about race, including about immigration, including about everything else. Although my view is that the report is too soft and doesn't focus anywhere near enough on the racism issue and on the immigration issue. But they present it as a newspaper report suggested.
But
it's a cover-up of the failings.
It's a lie within the lie. So, like, I mean, technically, this is how the media lies all the time. They're professionals at this. This is what journalists do, right? After a newspaper report suggested, not because a newspaper report suggested, and technically that's true. It is technically true that after it was published in the Telegraph or wherever, then this happened. That is completely correct. But it's not because it was published in the Telegraph. It's because of the report that the BBC had commissioned itself to do internally. That's why this happened. They are lying to you. They are constantly lying, and they're experts at lying as well.
And I mean, this is, again, I mentioned it's a BBC article, so they are trying to minimize damage and minimize blame and obfuscate the issue that it's a culture issue.
Lying. Well, I've got a report on us lying.
Right. So
better lie about that. I hear so much. Sorry.
We have the Telegraph live stories, and I want to show you some statements, and I want to ask you what you think about them. So, saying they're risking great risk to future, whatever Warren's former director.
Yeah, good. Nigel
Gordon Brown rejects claims of BBC bias.
So like the great risk to the future thing, they're probably worried that Nigel Farage will come on and do something, right? Because he should. He should just turn the BBC into a subscription service. If you want to pay for people who are left wing, openly biased, and will lie to your face repeatedly and lie about the lies afterwards, then that should at least be voluntary.
But then it shouldn't be called the BBC.
Call it whatever you like. I don't care. But as long as I don't have to pay for it, I don't want to have to pay for the TV license.
I think it's £181 per year.
Yeah.
And they also send you, if you don't pay, they send you this ridiculous mail saying that the army is going to come in if you don't pay the license or something. Yep.
Sorry, what did the most relevant Prime Minister in British history say?
He rejects claims of BBC bias.
He's a communist.
Gordon Brown. Yeah, they just made a mistake. I mean, I like how they're trying to portray the deliberate fabrication of something as a mere mistake.
So I just want to go back to the video. Can we get this video up again, just so you can see it? Right.
Yep.
Just reload it.
Yeah, reload it. Just to the beginning, right? So what they've done here is actually a really smooth transition. Like, when you watch it, you can't see the fact that it's edited.
Yes.
Like, there's no sort of like flash on the screen or obvious jump cut or anything. It was an incredibly smooth transition. Mm-hmm. And as someone who has edited many a video and is terrible at video editing, that's a skill. Like, that's a talent. You need a particular kind of software. You need to know how to use the software. And you need to actually spend some time actually splicing those things together and erasing the evidence that wasn't just one contiguous sentence. Like, this is not an accident. That took work to do. Just FYI.
We have another statement here that I'm sure it's going to be Carl's favorite. Internal right-wing by Alistair Campbell. Internal right-wing forces working to undermine BBC. So the right has secretly infiltrated the BBC and is trying to capture the institution.
Yeah.
God, give me the right of the left's imagination, please.
Yes, exactly.
That's all I ask for.
And he says, the real weakness of the BBC, as exemplified by recent events, is its failure to stand up to ludicrous claims from the right that it is somehow hugely biased to the left.
I just think Alistair Campbell is a clown. I wouldn't take any of his analysis.
I think it's worse than that. I think that they are genuine believers. Like, they truly believe the BS that they spew. I mean, in the full memo that covers the BBC's biases, they mention stories about when they report that a woman raped a woman.
Yes.
You know, what they actually mean is that a man who pretends to be a woman, or who yesterday began pretending to be a woman after he was jailed, raped a woman and was convicted. Yeah. And so this is bias. Not mentioning that he's a man is obvious bias. But as far as Alistair Campbell is concerned, they insist on doubling down, which I want to make a point here. It shows an issue with the difference between the left and the right. The right is constantly self-policing and self-critiquing and making sure that it's really playing by these nice liberal norms and that it's not saying anything offensive. The left doesn't care. They take no prisoners. They do not compromise. They will give you nothing.
I will say, I'm happy that we have standards.
That's good. But I mean, quick thing to remember is Alistair Campbell was Tony Blair's spin doctor. He was just a professional liar for Tony Blair throughout the Blair government, then became the head of communications for the government or whatever.
Also, if it's ridiculous to claim that the institution has a left-wing bias and it's good or has a right-wing bias, why should the right wing do a coup inside the BBC?
Not just that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Was there a single story where the BBC had to apologize for a mistake because it leaned too right-wing?
It was too overbearing on immigration or something like that.
Was there a single story where the mistake went in favor of the right? The mistake, bias went in favor of the right? Never.
Just a quick thing on Alistair Campbell. Like, how conspiratorial is this as well? Like, this is genuinely a conspiracy theory that right-wing forces exist in the BBC and are working to undermine the corporation.
I wish...
But what are you talking about? This sounds like David Icke levels of nonsense. Like, the right-wing forward, lizard men, what are you on? Name someone in the BBC who could be plausibly described as right-wing. Just one person I would like to see. Sorry.
It's just the hologram that is created that tells you that there are no right-wing people.
It's so ridiculous.
It's just right-wing lizards.
Alistair Campbell.
The reptilian right.
Are lizards naturally right-wing or left-wing? That's a great lads hour.
Yeah, we should reptilian right should totally be a thing.
Anyway, let's carry on.
Right, okay. So we have all sorts of ministers saying that
heads should roll. That's correct.
Yeah. Trump was enraged by BBC bias. I want to show you the statement by Trump. He said the top people in the BBC, including Tim Davie, the boss, are all fired because they were caught doctoring my very good, perfect speech on January 6th. Thank you to The Telegraph for exposing these corrupt journalists. These are very dishonest people who try to step on the scales of a presidential election.
True.
On top of everything else, they're from a foreign country, one that many consider a number one ally. What a terrible thing for democracy. So lots of people are trying to take this entirely fair critique, and they're trying to say that Trump is attacking British democracy.
What British democracy?
And
sorry to keep pausing on everything, but how does this attack democracy? The BBC lied about me. Oh my God, that's an attack on our democracy. Sorry, is our democracy predicated on being able to publicly lie about Donald Trump? Is that genuinely what they're saying?
Yes.
Because that seems to be the only inference you can reasonably take from that.
But that's exactly what they mean.
I know, exactly. What else could you draw from that? Sorry.
It's not just that. It's Samir Shah, who is the chair of the BBC, who is talking to the MPs right now with a letter. He basically characterized what happened as an error of judgment.
I mean, it is an error of judgment to lie.
Yeah, but I mean,
correct.
But what is it
based
on? I'm not interested in the description. What is it based on? Yeah. It's based on a culture.
Right. So
it's based on a worldview.
Ed Davies writing to Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch, and Nigel Farage, urging them to condemn Trump's attack on the BBC.
Is this guy the dancing videos guy?
Yes, he is. Yeah. Yes, this is the clown who runs the Lib Dem.
No,
well, the thing that's important about this is it gets to Stelios' point. If the BBC is somehow not a left-wing bastion, why are left-wingers coming out and claiming it, saying that we must defend the BBC because it's ours against the evil right-wing who are trying to assault it by using evidence of us lying about them as somehow a way of delegitimizing us. If that wasn't the case. It's so transparent. I'm so tired of the pretense.
Or maybe he wants to say that it is impartial. And it's the right-wingers who want to capture it to make it impartial.
Which is why no one takes Ed Davey seriously.
Right. Okay. So Ed Davey again says, it's easy to see why Trump wants to destroy the world's #1 news source. We can't let him. The BBC belongs to all of us here in the UK. The PM and leaders from across the spectrum should be united in telling Trump to keep his hands off of it.
He's not buying the BBC, Ed. The BBC is not being privatized, you dolt. What it is, it's a lying institution that you're forced to pay for. Like, good God, this is. Sorry, I'm.
That's what I said in the beginning.
It's so annoying.
They're trying to create a problem that doesn't exist.
It's open partisanship. Now it's just like BBC ours, therefore good. Trump not ours, therefore bad. Regardless of what the truth of the matter is.
So Ed Davey is more supportive of the BBC than people right now. Some people right now on the BBC.
Than the people in the BBC.
Yeah. And here we have someone else, Oliver Ryan, who says so many new media influencers, journalists, presenters, populists, and funders of the political extremes completely despise the BBC, are jealous of the BBC, want to see the end of the BBC for their own benefit.
Yes.
If we want the BBC to survive, we have to be prepared to defend it.
I don't want it to survive.
Don't defend it.
It's a legacy institution of empire that needs to go. Its time has passed.
That's the thing. The claim of credibility for the BBC was from third world countries who thought at least these guys either don't hate us or hate us all equally, and therefore will be neutral.
Yeah.
And therefore they relied on the BBC at a time when there was only state media as an alternative.
Yeah.
Like, who are you going to trust, the BBC or the Egyptian government media? No, obviously the BBC.
Also, Firas, I don't know what you're going to make of it, but the first response has 666 likes.
He's right. We don't want the BBC to survive as it is.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, though. Like this is just another problem of the end of empire and the lack of reformed institutions that Britain is currently saddled by. We are burdened by institutions that still think it's 1920.
Yeah.
And it's things have changed. Things have to change.
Yes. We have again David Yelland, who I think was an editor of The Sun, who says, what has happened today at the BBC is nothing short of a coup, a national disgrace. The corporation's board has effectively been undermined, and elements close to it have worked with hostile newspapers. Editor, former MP, blah, blah, blah.
If you look at the
only honorable players are Tim Davie and Deborah Turner. So again, just never getting any accountability. Never showing any.
If you look at the details of the report, the memo that's involved here, the guy repeatedly mentions how him and a journalist called David Grossman, whose job was to write reports about this stuff, continuously communicated with the editorial guidance and standards committee and highlighted to them the bias. And the response they got constantly was dismissal. Oh. No, it's not happening.
You will never get anything else.
And it's beautiful to see that the whole left shares the exact same mindset, but they're a herd who don't know that they're a herd.
Yep.
That's their problem.
And I think that's
as if cattle thought that they were journalists and genuinely believed.
That's more of the useful idiot diagnosis of the situation. I think that there's another bit that is a bit more conscious. And essentially the way that they are talking and throwing messages and quantity of messaging shows to me that basically what they want to do is to create this image yet again that Trump is creating Weimar conditions and that they are threatened, and they aren't threatened, at least in such a way, because when they convince people that there is such a massive threat, which there isn't, when people see that no such threat comes in to be realized, they will say, right, it didn't happen because Ed Davey spoke against it, because Harriet Harman, because David Yelland spoke against it.
I don't know, man. I really want the end of Weimar.
They're creating a problem out of nowhere. They're creating a problem out of nowhere to claim a victory that won't exist. I mean, no, just...
Quite possibly, but it's so frustrating that they don't... I mean, I don't think it is the cattle herd that doesn't realize it's a herd. I think they're conscious of it. I agree with Stelios. I think they're self-conscious. And we can see this in the way that they characterize political people. As in, Tommy Robinson is the far-right populist agitator, and, here's just a person from Novara Media.
Yes.
Sorry, if you're going to characterize anyone, characterize everyone, or don't characterize anyone. That would be the neutral thing to do. That's not what the BBC does. Anyway, would you want backing from Harriet Harman? She backed the Paedophile Information Exchange.
Yes, she did.
But then the BBC covered up Jimmy Savile and what's-his-face, the Australian guy, the didgeridoo guy. I can't remember the name.
There are many. It's not just one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there are many, and then they've got the pedo statue outside of it that was vandalized recently. It's just, what are we doing here, folks? Like, there's something clearly rotten in the BBC, and it's because of the untouchable and impenetrable nature of it, and the institutional support it gets from politicians. Like, it's obvious that this is going to be a vector for corruption.
Yes.
Anyway, should we leave that there?
Yeah, of course.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.